Okay, the recording has started. So, welcome everybody to this second session of the ESCO workshop. I welcome you all. My name is Gian Claudio, and I will be moderating this workshop. Today, we will see the continuing of where we left off yesterday. So we will start with a brief introduction by Ekaterini Sulla, and then we will jump right into the presentations. First of all, concerning the guidelines for implementing ESCO codes in EURES, and then about matching of skills and occupation on the EURES portal. After the coffee break, that will be at around 11:30, we will hear two speakers, one from Sweden and one from Germany, explaining how to maintain map tables over time. And we will end this session at around 12:45. As for yesterday, we will address questions after each presentation. You can both raise your hand to speak, or you can write in the chat, and we will read the questions to the speakers for you. So, without further ado, I will leave the floor to Ekaterini, our Senior Mobility Officer at ELA. Please, Ekaterini.
Thank you so much, Gian Claudio. Dobre rano to everybody. Today is a rainy day in Bratislava. I hope you're experiencing better weather wherever you are. I also hope you had a good rest yesterday after the fruitful presentations and discussions we had. And today we're continuing in this mode. Today we're going to focus on the practical aspects of the EURES matching. Now, before anything, it is important to understand that the EURES regulation places two legal obligations on the member states. This is as a reminder, because we know that all of you know these things, but it is good from here and there to hear them again. One is to submit the mapping tables, and another one is to use them when ESCOsifying GV and CV data before sending them to the EURES portal through the single coordinating channel. Now, the mapping tables have no use if you do not utilize them when sending your CVs and JVs to us. The mapping tables are not there to put them on the back burner. They should be used when sending this data to us. Yesterday, presentations were centered around the first legal obligation. Now, today, they are focused on the second one. And to this regard, we are witnessing several inconsistencies when receiving this data. For example, in several cases, we are receiving ESCO data instead of ESCO data. So ESCO is not acceptable anymore. Also, in several cases, we are receiving mappings, but we're not receiving the mapping relationships. The mapping relationships are there for a reason, and my colleague Thomas Bikev later in his presentation will detail all these issues and advise how this can be rectified. Important also to understand is that even if we have 5 countries, for instance, sending the JV and CV data in the correct format, the matching will not work. Even if we have 28 countries sending the data in the correct format, the matching will not work. And this is because at EURES we are performing cross-border job matching. And this means that the matching engine relies on data being submitted in the correct format by all the EURES countries. We're 7 years after the entry into force of the EURES regulation in 2016, and we're still struggling with that. But the good news is that there is still time to rectify all these issues. And with today's sessions, we hope that we're able to help you. And with this, I will give the floor to our moderator, Gian Claudio, to start with the content, the real content of this workshop.
Thank you, Ekaterini. Thank you for this introduction. So we had a slight change in the agenda that we shared in the days before. So we will have first now the presentation from Thomas Pikev, business analyst in ELA US team. Thomas, I leave the floor to you. You can share your screen.
Good morning, everybody. You can see my presentation, right?
Yes.
Super. Good morning, everybody. Yes, indeed. We today are looking at a number of most common questions and most common issues that we encounter when using ESCO in EURES. Obviously, one doesn't need to introduce EURES very much in detail, but in a nutshell, one of the main functionalities that we provide is to receive more than 1 million CVs by now, several millions of GVs, and provide the services back to the member states based on this data. The services we provide are searching and matching services. That is our main focus. And these services can be used from the portal itself. So one can come to the portal, search for the jobs, search for the candidates. One can also do the matching, meaning that within a portal, there is a functionality that allows you to look at a specific CV and see what are the best job opportunities for the CV. The same works for the jobs. You can go find the specific, being an employer, you can maybe see a vacancy and see what are the best candidates for this specific position. So all that is there due to the data that you provide. So it's really, really important that the data is entered correctly and we both understand what the receiving side and the sending side understands in the same way the data. And obviously, importance of the ESCO is very difficult to underestimate here. ESCO allows us to codify the specific categories of occupations, specific categories of skills, such that they become language independent, meaning that specific occupations that are advertised for in the member states and the citizens that are able to work for or apply for these occupations, for these positions, don't need to communicate translating the attributes into they don't need to be within the same language, meaning that we can use the codified values in order to provide matching and the search services. So this is the work that we need to produce daily. So it's a really real-time data. We do receive the data on a daily basis from the member states, as much as from the job seekers or the job seeker CVs, as much as the vacancies. So that's why it is really, really important that our matching services do work correctly. A little bit on how does the matching happens. In a later presentation by Christoph Dankert, you will see actually exactly much more in detail, technically, what are the matching requisites, how mechanically it happens. But in a nutshell, we do take, on the left side here, you see a CV. On the right side, you see the job vacancy. And each of these documents contain different information. So the candidate will be describing his education, work experience, and skills, languages that he might speak, and also express specific desires. So there could be specific desired location, desired occupation, contract type. So the candidate will be having a bunch of things that are property of candidate itself, as much as the aspirations and the desires related to the occupation. The same on the right side. If you do have advertisement, the job vacancy, there will be some attributes which describe actually the requirements of the position. So the position might ask for specific education, specific experience and skills, specific languages. as much as the position might provide different things. So specific industry, specific function, specific location of employment, contract type, maybe salary. So you see that on the right, there is also number of things that are provided and number of things that are demanded. So in our matching or in our searching, what we need to do is we need to reconcile this has and wants, these properties that are given and properties that are required. And the way it happens in the matching is that from both from the left side and the right side, we will be extracting data that belongs into the same domain. So for example, you see here languages are property of the candidate, so candidate can speak languages. Languages are also requirements of the position. So if the languages that candidate has and the languages that position demands are the same, on a language level, it will be the match. So this way we separate both the CV and GV in number of dimensions, each of which needs to match. And if all dimensions have matched, it will be really, really close match. If some of them have matched, some of them haven't, it will be something in between. And if nothing matches, then it will be bad match. So in a nutshell, this is the way how we do perform the matching. We need to separate all the attributes that we have on the left side and all attributes on the right side into distinct categories. And then for each category, we see, is it a match or not? So where is here the ESCO? ESCO provides us with opportunity to classify both the candidate and the position into specific occupations and to specific skills. So we will be having a occupation dimension and we will be having skills dimension. And both of them are really important. As you know, within the ESCO implementation, you have started implementing first occupations and then the skills. So the occupations are currently well understood. It works pretty nicely. For the skills, there is still some work to do, but that's exactly the way. Basically, there will be two dimensions, and these two dimensions will be fed from the data that we have. Now, let's have a look at it a little bit from the detailed perspective. So the first occupations. We do have a specific dimension for this. It's a matching dimension 2 for the occupations. And most frequent questions are what to use. Do we use ESCO? Do we use ESCO? And specific questions which are more targeting what happens if there are many ESCO occupations, how do we process that? Good. So if we have a look first at the matching dimension, we see that ESCO occupations are present here in a number of places. So on the vacancy side, in the vacancy we call it position opening, we do have a job category which is tagged with ESCO occupation. We have a required experience, which is also ESCO occupation. So here you already see the separation. The first attribute, the job category, that's a property of the vacancy itself, whereas the required experience in terms of ESCO is something that we are asking from the job seeker, or it's rather the vacancy says, well, I would like to have a, I don't know, lorry driver who has experience in driving lorries. So there is a GV for the lorry driver, that's a property of occupation property of the GV, and there is a requirement on the candidate that will be matching this vacancy to have the same experience. So you see ESCO used here, ESCO is used here in two places, and the same is actually on the CV level as well. There is a desired occupation, which is an occupation that is a property of, this is a requirement of the candidate. The candidate would like to perform specific occupation, and the candidate may have, may not have in his or her position history having performed a specific ESCO occupation. So again, two places. Excuse me. So here you see that it's already quite complicated just for the occupations itself. They exist in two places in each, so there are 4 places. And obviously we do have different fill rates. Again, for the GV ESCO occupations were 100% full. The required experience is somewhere between, around 1/5 of the occupations that have it. The desired occupation is desired occupation on the CV side are expressed in 90% of cases, and in 0.5% of cases they're expressed in the position history. So again, one of the drivers or takes away is obviously try to populate this data as much as we can. Although obviously for position history, that's not always the case. You might very well have the people without previous position history. That's a very valid case. So this is occupation space. Now, question very often asked, how do we express exactly occupations? Again, as Ekaterini has outlined, there is a obligation on the member states to map the local concepts of occupations to the ESCO ones. So at the end of the day, you're ending up with a number of Excel spreadsheets where all this is nicely mapped. Obviously, the job doesn't finish there. This is only sort of meta step. It's a prerequisite for sending the data. We jurists, do receive over a single connected channel number of XML documents. So exactly there, for each GV and for each CV, this codes in ESCO needs to be put in. And we do have actually supporting documentation that is provided when the connectivity with ESCO with EURES portal is established on how exactly in the documents these codes need to be provided. Here you have an example with ESCO. So ESCO in this case is a subset of ESCO. It's a level 1 to 3 of ESCO. And there we express the job category code using specific ESCO code. So here we supply the attribute that says it will be ESCO code, and we give the code itself. So 3117, for example, is the mining and metallurgical technicians. So thanks to this expression, somewhere on the portal in the advertisement itself, in the GV itself that is being shown, we will see basically this text that appears here in the green. Again, here there could be several category codes that are going with one GV. This is absolutely valid. Here you have 3 ESCO codes being supplied. They appear here as a free attributes of text on the portal. And on the right, you see the model. So the job category code is actually that thing here, expressed in XML here, and expressed on the portal there. All that is given in the documentation that we call EFSS. That's the EURES formats and specifications. They are available for, obviously, for members and partners of EURES. They're available through Circa BC. If you don't have them at your disposal, please contact us and we will make necessary that you get them. But this is example for expressing job category code as ESCO. One word about ESCO versus ESCO. ESCO was a sort of the step in between. When we were moving to ESCO a few years ago, ESCO was mandatory at some stage for all GVs that were sent to EURES. Now, since the things have moved, and obviously the obligation now is to provide the ESCO codes where possible. There are certain situations where ESCO codes cannot be provided, and then we can still fall back on ESCO, but these are really exceptions, and obviously ESCO is the codes. ESCO are the codes that are supposed to be sent. Now, very same thing can be expressed as ESCO code. So here you see in the diagram, it is no longer job category code, it's actually the experience that is required. So we're somewhere deep in the model. And here we're asking for a technical drawer with at least 1 year experience on the side. And this is expressed through this element here. And in this case, we'll be using, so it's a position opening, position qualifications, experience summary, experience category element. That would be now qualified as an ESCO occupation. And here already we do not ask, the expression is different. Here you have a ESCO URI, so uniform resource identifier, which is that really long URL that specifies category code. So it's a little bit different to ESCO. Again, here we need to change the qualification attribute and provide the URI itself in order to communicate it to EURES. Again, all that is described in the EFSS of on how to express ESCO, how to express ESCO. Next point is the multiple mappings. This is the data from 2022. I think it's not absolutely 100% now exact, but the point here is being that obviously we are very conscious of the fact that national occupation taxonomies are not exactly what ESCO is, and that's why the whole exercise of mapping it. Now, during the mapping, you can come to the situation where for the same concept in a national classification, you may or may not find exactly the same on the ESCO side. And there is a need to provide more information on what it is, how the national concept relates to the ESCO concept, and a number of cases, there is a need to provide member states providing more than one mapping for the same thing. And here you see that in some countries, for example, in Croatia, it's in more than 40% of cases, in Netherlands, it's 35% of cases, where for the local term, for the local category, there won't be just exactly one-to-one match, but there will be something else. Maybe it will be two categories, maybe it will be one category which is has a specific qualifier, which is a broader term or narrower term. So there are complications. Now, it's all fine. The problem will begin to be visible on a portal when we receive the data. And here is a bit of a fun example. In Dutch, for example, there is no in a local classification, if I remember correctly, for the people who work as a specialists in a grocery, there is no exact description other than a grocery specialist. Whereas in ESCO, there is 37 different flavors to people who work in a grocery. So it can be fishmonger grocery, it can be flour grocery, it can be car parts grocery. So there are different types of the grocery stores where specific specialists can be employed, 37. And in Holland, it stops just on a grocery specialist, and there is no other specialization in a local classification. So what happens then is that the mapping will be done such that the Dutch colleagues will be mapping grocery specialist to 37 narrower concepts. Now, which is fine in principle, because obviously in national, they don't have anything more than just a grocery specialist, so it stops. But if they then translate it into the XML, and if we have a GV for somebody who wants to employ, who wants to hire a grossist for example, flowers, the problem that will occur is that we will receive on the ESCO end all the subflavors of grocery specialists that are known to exist, and there is no way for us to distinguish which one actually is there the specialist or the specialty of that grossist. So basically, it happens to receive up to 37 concepts that are narrower in EURES portal, and obviously it doesn't make much sense. Our user interface will be overloaded with many different things that actually not relating to the specific thing. If it is a flower grossist, then there's no point mentioning car grossist or I don't know, something else. So we'll need to find a solution at the level of EURES portal when we receive too many terms or too many occupation codes for the thing that is actually meant to be just one. So as I said, it happens to the mapping on the broader concepts, and you're probably quite familiar of when you're doing mapping exercise, how it is done. And there it is totally needed to be able to express all the specific meta attributes and what is the relation between local classification attribute and the EURES attribute. But one thing is to map one taxonomy to another, and obviously that needs to be done correctly by all means. Another problem is how to send this data actually, and there we have a few suggestions. Again, looking at the broader concept in the matching itself, broader matching term can be, for example, head teacher, which is 1345.1 in ESCO, versus head of higher educational institution, which is 1345.15. So it's one level lower. So when the mapping is done on a broader term, it will be stopping at the 5th level of ESCO, while there is still one more level of ESCO. that could exist. So basically, when there is a broader, it's okay to receive the broader. The problem is then when we have a narrower mappings, and there we're actually asking for possibility during the sending of GVs and CVs to be able to step up a level. So instead of sending too many unprecise narrow codes, like it was with the grosses, just to step one level up and just to send us ESCO. It will, of course, introduce inaccuracy, but it will be much bigger inaccuracy rather than receiving too many codes, some of which will be totally wrong because, you know, it's like with the grosses, if it is a grosses for flowers, it certainly will be not grosses for the cars. And advertising something in both categories, flowers and cars, will be more erroneous than just saying a grosses full stop. So that's a gist of it. Now, a few slides supporting of how the mapping is done here. But the overall logic, and we do have actually a document that was written 2 or 3 years ago on the logic of sending national occupation categories to EURES. It's a sort of flowchart. So if we're investigating, if there are many mapping relations, up to 3, if we remain under the number of 3 or equal, just send to us ESCO codes, we can still process and make sense of 3. If there is a more specific than, but more than 3, ESCO URIs are still accepted. If there are too many relations, basically please step up and send us ESCO. That will be a fallback solution. Again, we would be most happy to address, so it's like 2 specific questions. Again, it will be then also changing from member state to member state. If you do have a specific questions to that one-to-many relations, there is a PDF written, and we will be more than happy to see what your specific problems are. We do have a Jira process for that, and you would be more than welcome to submit your questions. Next topic is the ESCO skills. So these were occupations. ESCO skills, second part of second pillar of ESCO taxonomy. There is a matching dimension which is dedicated to skills. That's matching dimension 3. We do store the competency for GVs and CVs. We do need to have a specific treatment for language skills, because for language skills we do have different matching dimension. And there is a bit of the discussion of CFR versus ESCO. So it's also a bit of a complicated story. So the way it works is that on the skills, we do have them mentioned in GV, position opening, position competency, expressed as ESCO skills. On the CV, they're expressed in two places. It's the qualifications that person may have that is expressed as ESCO skill, or employment history. So employment period, person competency during a period is also ESCO skill. Competency itself is comprised of an ESCO skill. And in ESCO, there is one more complication, which is that ESCO can express both language skills and non-language skills. So ESCO skills are used for 2 different, or for 2 related or interlinked concepts, which also includes language skills. We also do have a language skills, which is a separate category. And there we actually are able to receive both ISO code or CFR code. So if you're expressing the language skills of the person that is being looked for in a GV, there are many different ways to express the same concepts. It is really provides you more flexibility in these terms. If you are storing language skills as ISO codes, that could be consumed. If you're storing language skills as CFR codes, CFR, if you remember, that's the European framework for language competencies. This is the way you say there's an ABC grading, and then you have levels 1 to 3 for reading, comprehending, speaking. So this is this thing. So there are already two ways here how the language skill can be expressed, either ISA code or CFR. In addition, if you have invested already in the ESCO classification properly, you may also express the language skills through ESCO. That's also possible. In principle, we should be able to process it all, at least according to our standards. The other skills, non-language skills, they can be expressed only through ESCO. A few years back, they were really sparse. So obviously, it is the desire of everybody to receive more data here. So this is competency. GV competency on CV side is roughly the same structure. It can be ESCO skill expression or language skill expression, and here we have variations. This can be used, basically. Again, based on experience, the competency, although we say it's a competency-based matching, we are much more right now in our initial versions are focusing on occupations. And the desire is to go into the skills area and do more matching on the skills. So on one side, it requires more data from yourselves. On another side, it requires also more thinking on our side how to process this data better. Again, Christoph will give you a little bit more detail on how this is exactly being matched. As a conclusion to these 2 points. So as far as the serialization of the data is concerned, which XML we use, where do we put which attributes, where do we put which codes, please consult EFSS 1.4. It states there are 2 very thick PDF volumes that show examples of XML and where to put which data for GVs and JSPs. They describe the mandatory elements, they describe the examples how the data elements are encoded. So this can be found in Circa BC or IOCs or ECGs. If you are not member of that or you don't know how to access it, please contact us through the help desk or directly, and we will give you pointers of how to get there. For the ESCO occupations, there is a PDF that specifically focuses on only how to treat all these broader, narrower elements, how to put them in XML, and how to truncate the data if needed. So that is also available. Also, please give us a shout if this needs to. In both cases, there is a EURES Jira interoperability project. Any questions related to the single coordinated channel, to the way how the XML is exchanged, etc., can be addressed there. That's a preferred way. So this way we are able to track the tickets better, direct it to the correct colleagues, etc. So these are the conclusive points. Do you please have some questions?
Thank you very much, Thomas. Now it's your time to ask some questions. So you can either write in the chat or raise your hand. So I will check the chat. In the meantime, I saw some comments that were made on the chat. Let's see if there is any raised hand. Of course, don't be shy. Now it's your time to ask any question, any clarification, or if you have doubts, if you didn't understand something or didn't hear something, it's time to ask. So I don't know, Thomas, if in the meantime you can see the chat, the comments that were made while you were speaking.
So let us see. Comment on multiple mappings from Peter. From Sweden, the quality assurance of ESCO NOC mapping tables that John Lutz presented yesterday has helped us in Sweden a great deal to reduce the number of multiple mappings. Super, that's very happy. So ideally, of course, you know, in EURES we're on the receiving end. Whatever was happening in the mapping exercise and whatever, you know, spreadsheets have been created, we will be seeing them in practice. If everything is ideal upstream, then we will receive only great one-to-one mappings and everything will be fine. If not, then we need to find the workarounds. Artificial intelligence and what Jean-Lutz has provided is probably the way to go and probably worth investigating. Bartek from Poland, comment on multiple mappings. Quality assurance of ESCO NOC mapping tables at, okay, great. By the way, do you mean the AI model has helped? And Peter says yes. So yeah, it's a kind of discussion on how AI can help, and yeah, I would encourage you to look at this example.
All right, so I don't see any other question or raised hand. So of course, you can always ask questions also after the workshop. Thomas, I don't know if you want to put in the chat an email where you can be reached for further questions.
Yeah, will do.
All right, so in the chat soon you will have the email. So we are a little bit ahead of time, but I see already Christoph ready. So I want to thank again Thomas for his presentation. So now we can proceed with the second presentation of the morning. We have Christoph Dankert from DG Ample. So I leave you the floor, Christoph.
Good morning. I hope everyone can hear me well.
Yes.
Let me share my presentation. There we go.
Okay, we can see.
Okay. Thanks to Thomas, my former colleague, for warming the audience. So now that you've seen why the hurdles to get the ESCO correctly onto the EURES portal, which hurdles to take, and some advice, I can show you what we are doing with all that hard work, hard labor, how we are using it in the matching, because in the end, that's why we are doing it, to get searching and matching on the portal across Europe. And I've got the challenge to try to explain you in a short period how ESCO is being used in the matching. And for this, I need to take you on a journey across also a couple of hurdles. First, I need to explain a bit how matching works, or the matching engine that we are using, how it works. Even if it sounds simple, if you see it, it's just you need to have a certain mindset to understand how to think about it. Then I hope to get the principles explained, I will show you how we are doing it in EURES, the EURES matching overview, some general things about it. And then we dive into the details how ESCO is used in our current matching model. And it will become clear how important ESCO is to have the matching useful. So let's dive in. First, the basics of matching. It's very important to understand that matching is all about wish lists. I have been comparing it to speed dating. Like if you're doing speed dating, when you go on a speed date, you always have a list of what you're looking. You have a list of your wishes that you want to find in the partner on the other side. And the other side will have some wish lists when they look at you. And these wishes do not have to be the same for the both sides. The same way, job seekers employers also have their different wish lists. Each of turn is going to check the other side, and during this speed date, which is the match, they're going to use that list. And that's important already when you look at data, whatever, is that the meaning of the data you're sending is important. First, the job seeker has wishes, and in the current first version of the match model, these wishes that we have implemented are about the job that the person wants to do, the kind of job, the location that it should be, the language that the person wants to use or speak in that, and the sector that the job should be in. So this is what the job seeker in the EURES matching speed dating is having as a potential wish list, and the job seeker will check out if the employer is having this. The employer also has a wish list, and what is on our EURES wish list in this version is a lot of experience. We want The employer, of course, wants to know if the job seeker can do the job, has the skills to do the job, has experience maybe in the sector that it wants experience in, has the correct education level, and maybe have a driving license. So if you've noticed, if you look at the standards, there is much more, of course, potential wishes. This is the first version of the matching where we focused on, and in the future we will elaborate this. And the employer is also going to check out the job seeker. So this is a bit the basic concept that matching is working with wishes from a certain site. That's what you should take from this slide. Now, it's one match, so it's a speed date. And as each of the party comes with a wish list, there is no wish list if the other side doesn't offer. So if you have a question during a speed date, if the other side doesn't have an answer on your wish, the speed date is not going to be very successful. So during a match, what's happening? We are sitting on the table both with the wish lists, and the job seeker is going to ask the questions, and the employer has information that gives the answers. So the employer is going to offer a job, is going to offer a work location, a language, and a sector. Also what Thomas has explained in his slides before already. And the employer, the job seeker, has some things to offer to match to the employer wishes. And when both of these checks happen, both of them are separate things. When both of them happen and we put together our findings in the speed date, the two scores from both sides together is how good we match as a potential candidate. And that's how matching engine that we use is working. And if you now look at the left, that's all information that's in the CV. So from the CV, there is information that is important to know the wish, and there's information that's important to have what is offered. So if, for instance, in the CVs that you would be sending, the offer side would be missing, that you are not sending ESCO or any occupations in the offered side, you could see that the whole matching is failing, because one error is only going to work and all the other errors are going to fail. So to have a good matching, all of the data that you see, the wish and the offer, both of them should be present to have a good matching system. So that's why we're so vulnerable to good data quality. The moment we get things missing, this matching is coming to a problem. Okay, now last thing, and that's maybe the most special thing, but you have to think about. It's the matching in EURES, the speed dating is a special one. It's a VIP one where it's, for instance, one CV only. You start with, I want to have a match from my CV. You're the case handler, you have a CV, and you want to find the perfect match. This one job seeker, you want to find amongst all the available GVs, you want to find the perfect one. So what's happening? We take the wish list from that one job seeker, and we do a super fast speed date amongst all the millions of GVs and say, where is the one that has the best of my wishes? That's step number one. And what happens then is that all the GVs, all one by one, look back at this one job seeker. So the one job seeker went speed dating across all the GVs, and now all the GVs are going to ask back questions to the one job seeker and using all their different wishes. And that's score number 2. And in the end, both of them combined, so all scores from step 1 and all the scores that we got back from the GVs, them combined is the match score. And the highest scoring objects, GVs, will be the ones highest in the list that are presented to this job seeker. And it's very important. So there's much of details in the matching engine. You can say, if the job seeker doesn't get a score of minimum 50%, for instance, stop it. We don't have to look anymore. So there are many details around. The first score can be more important than the second one. So I'm not going to tell you about this, but that's what the matching engine can do. But this is how our matching engine is working. We are having 2 lists, and depending if you would take the job vacancy, one job vacancy as the left, of course, then you have the same system. Then the one job vacancy is using all the orange, all the CVs, and all the CVs will look back. So as a conclusion, so this is, if you understand this, is how matching works. It is 2 wish lists. where if you take in EURES, you start with one object, you will go to the portal, you will find a GV or CV, and you say, please match this one. And then this is happening, what I'm showing you here. This is what the calculation is doing. So to wrap up, is that a match model of EURES is defined in two separate matches, each for one party. And each of these two matches focuses on what the party wants. So the GV, what do we have in the current model in EURES? The three experiences. Experience you have expressed in the GV as an occupation. Experience you have expressed as skills. Experience in a sector code, education and driving. Current model. And in the CV, we have also four desires. The person wants to work in a certain location. They want to have a certain type of job expressed as an occupation. They want to work in a certain sector, and they have some desires about the working language. So this is the EURES model today. And what is happening is that we have defined the two match calculations to the whole rules, how it should be done. And that's what is running today on the portal. So if you ever see a documentation, if we are talking about a dimension, which is a technical term from our engine, one, you see the 5 and the 4 things there. Each of those things is scored separately, and that's what we call a dimension. So in EURES today, we have 9 dimensions in our speed dating. And each time you hit a match button, all 9 dimensions are always going to be calculated between the two objects. I want to show you a bit about the result screens. Why? Because if you now understand, I hope, a bit how the matching works, you will also see an improvement that is going to come in the next release that is already showing today. So if you would have a match result, you see there a list of a couple of job vacancies, and you see the total match score, like 100% and 92. And if you would ask to see the details, you see these 7 dimension percentages. What is the issue today with this score is that, as you've seen, occupation and sector are kind of 2 scores behind the scenes, because we have 9 dimensions, but you only see 7 because we've put them together on. So this scoring is not really showing this 2-direction thing. So we have been working hard during the last year after the first release, and in the next upcoming release, the detail score is going to look like this. And now you see it's going to represent much more what I was just showing you. It will tell you how the candidate's preferences have been met, 92%, and we see the 4 dimensions shown. And then we show the job figure. Sorry, there we go again. I've got this little button on my mouse, and if I just happen to come across, it jumps a slide. So I have to cut off a finger or something, maybe. Okay. So here you can see the job vacancy. Here are the dimensions, and we're also showing the match. So you see from this information, which was just saying occupation was 90%, here we're seeing that the CV, the occupation the person wanted, was not matching at all, and that the occupation from the job vacancy, the experience, there the job vacancy was very happy because the person seems to have 93% of the expected occupation. So we think it's a big improvement that you will have, showing this logic of the matching engine, like which side was the most happy and the different things that we've been checking. And there is also much more contextual information, like, for instance, here education level scored 0, but it says, look, there was something asked, but the CV didn't have information. So this 0 of education level could be uncertain, because the GV wanted some education, but the CV didn't have it. So that's also what we're trying to give in the information now, more information that the reader understands that an actual not matching really means there is information and we're sure that this is not a job type you wanted, while this information is saying there was something asked, but the other side did not give an information. So it could still be something to check out. So that's the improvement we are going. We're going much more into information, how the engine is actually thinking, which I think will help the user to understand what the matching is doing. And we're trying to translate some of the information a bit more with sentences so you understand. So you've seen the speed dating process. You've seen the 9 dimensions we have and how it can be shown to the user. So if you would see these screens, I hope it helps you to understand a bit what is happening. So now we have looked into EURES and matching. And now I'm going to show you how important ESCO is in this show. Here are our 9 dimensions, and I've indicated where ESCO is used. And as you can see, in 4 of the 9 dimensions, ESCO is super important. Even if you look at the job vacancy, it's all about experience. And there, the main part, of course, has to be expressed in ESCO. So I'm going to talk you through the 4 parts where we're using ESCO. I'm going to show you in very detail how we are using it. So just to give you an overview of how important in the dimensions ESCO is. Let's dive in. It's going to be a bit technical, and I hope I can explain things, but you will get a slide deck as well. So I put a lot of detail on the slide deck because I know maybe if you take it with you, you can have another look at it and see things later if you don't catch it during this short period of time I can present it, but I'm hoping to give you at least an idea. Okay, we're looking into the dimension experience, which has to be expressed as an occupation. What does it mean? The GV wants to see experience for certain occupations in the CV that it's looking at. That's what is the direction, and it's always important to have these specific directions in mind because all the data that we're going to use should really represent this sentence. So what are we then? We need to then determine which data to use to check this sentence. In the GV, we have a field which is expressing a required experience where we can put ISCO and ESCO. So we cover the demand we have in the standards. And in the CV, we also have a place where the work experience is put also as ISCO and ESCO. So those 2 data we're taking from the standards and we're putting this into the matching engine to represent the demand and the offer. Okay, as Thomas has been showing, these codes can be provided at 8 levels. If you look at a code at the lowest level of ESCO, you know in the ESCO taxonomy, this is the full tree. And the first 4 levels are ISCO codes or occupation groups, as we call them. And the last one is what ESCO has added, which is the really detail level. So before we could only say, I'm looking for some cooks, while now you can really say that you're looking, in fact, for a sommelier, which is a bit more detailed. So these codes here can be provided as a code at any of these 8 levels. Then the question is, how are we going to match this if they can be so different, the codes? So what we're using is the ESCO taxonomy. That's why we are using ESCO, because ESCO has a taxonomy which gives a lot of extra information. So, for instance, in your data, it could be that this URI is present in the experience section. And if you look at this one in the taxonomy, we look it up at the taxonomy, and then we find out that this is a level 7. Because it's this code that you see here, the 513.2.2.1. So as we use it in the taxonomy, we can fill out all the other levels. So in the matching engine, this is a screenshot from the tool I use to look into the matching engine. This URI that you send in is being put in the matching engine as it's basically all these levels. And that means that we don't only have a code which doesn't tell me a lot. Now it says the experience expected is at this level, and at the lower levels of detail, it also means this. Take a second code. If you only send ISCO, which in this case a 1-to-1, that code we will ask again to the ESCO taxonomy, can you tell me the levels? It will tell us that it has 3 levels, and it will fill it in like that. So the codes that you send in, we pass it through the intelligence of ESCO, and it can tell us we're using it to fill in all the other levels of the code. And now, in the matching, we're going to use this information to make the match between codes. And I've made some examples, and I hope you can bear with me because it's quite technical, but I just want to give a flavor of this. So let's take an example. The GV wants someone with experience as a sommelier. We are level 6. So we are here in the tree. That's what we want from the job seeker. And a CV number 1, it says, okay, I had an experience as a waiter. If we put that on the tree, we see that this CV at the same level is at level 4. And what does the engine do? It says, okay, I'm comparing the codes and I find 4 of the 6 levels are being filled of what you want. So I consider this CV on this occupation to be 66% offering what you are looking for. Another CV that comes with sommelier, spot on, of course, it matches all the levels, and there the matching engine would say, this is a 100% score for the experience asked by this GV. And here I've got a CV3, which even goes further. It is the beer sommelier, which is a level 7. Also, this one, as we are asking for the level 6, we consider 100% match. So we're using the taxonomy and the levels that the taxonomy teaches us to make the match between this single code of a GV and a couple of CVs. That's how we calculate today. There could be, if tomorrow the ESCO taxonomy would give other information, not just levels, whatever, we could also be using this. So whatever knowledge you have, if you have 2 codes and ESCO can tell us how good they match in whatever way, we could use it. So today we're using this, we're using the taxonomy and the levels to determine how close we consider 2 codes are. And then we've got CV number 4. Yeah, is a head waiter. So this one is at the same level here. So they match only at the level above, level 5. Sorry, again, yeah. So that would be an 83% match. So this is an example of one code. That's a simple one, but life is not easy. It can be multiple codes. So in this specific check, we're checking for experience. If a GV says multiple codes for experience, we consider this an AND. So if you say, I want experience in this and this code, we expect that the GV wants all of the experience there to have a 100%. So let's have a look. Now the GV is saying, I want to have experience as cook and as waiters. And we've got a CV1, which offers only waiters at 1 code. How the engine is working, it takes each of what the things that it's wanted. So first, it takes the waiters thing asked by the GV, and it finds in the CV, of course, the waiters. So it says for code number 1, I've got a 100%, and it takes that one. Then it takes its second demanded code, the cook, and the CV only has the waiters again, because there was only 1 code. And we calculate again, and there we only find, if you look, the green level is where they match. So we have to go up until these 2 codes meet each other, and that's at this level, which is level 2. So we've got 2 levels out of 6 demanded met, which is of 5, sorry, 2 levels of 5. So we consider this a 40% code. So each of the demanded codes, one by one, is checked against what the CV is to offer. And how is the calculation done? This is specifically, so if you look at the total match, we take both of them, the 2 codes, and we say that the experience is matched 70%. Because we take each for each of the demands the best scored. And what is important is this, which is a setting, which is something you decide. We have put in that the same experience can be used multiple times. So this waiters here, you see, is used 2 times to fulfill the 2 different demands. So that's also reused. Okay, if you're still with me, then let's step up one more thing. Let's take the example where both of them have multiple codes. You will have the slide deck, so if you cannot follow this, which I would perfectly understand, you can have a look later on. So again, 2 demanding code. The engine always takes the demand. It takes code number 1, and then it takes the 2 potential codes. Here we have got 2 CV codes, and you see demand code 1 matches only at 512, which is 3 levels. That's 60%. And the other code, bartenders, it would only score here at the red one, which is only 2 levels. So the engine is saying which of the two is best. This one, because it scores 60%. And so for this demand, it says, I've got something 60% in this CV. So it's using all the potential CVs. It calculates the best. And that's what's used for the one code. Then it takes the second code and it does the same. Again, the 2 CV codes are used. And we have a 3-level hit there. Sorry. And the other one is ignored again because it's not. So again, the best match of the levels is used. And we have a 75%. And the matching score is the 60, the 2 together divided by 2 because we had 2 demands. So the engine will say that experience between this GV and CV on occupation is matching 76.5%. So in a summary, you see that if you look at this from your point of view, is if you send a lot of codes and if the level of detail that you use in your codes is important for the matching, as you can see, because it determines how good. So if tomorrow you can only send everything in ESCO, which means you will remain at the higher levels, then of course you're not going to score many levels. Also, if what you're wanting, your demand is only ESCO, then if everything on the other side is ESCO, you're going to have a lot of 100% hits because what you're asking is not really detailed. So you can see here how important it is to send the correct codes at the correct level and not to flood the system with too many codes, and how important the ESCO taxonomy is for us. So this was one dimension. I hope I didn't lose you all, just to get an idea of how it works. It's really technical, and we worked for months on it. So now you have to get it by a couple of minutes. We're going to another dimension. So now we are in the CV. Before we had the GV, now it is the CV. The CV also wants occupations, but then I want to have a job as a business analyst. That's what we're doing now. Again, in the CV, we have a desired job in an ESCO, and in GV, we have a field where you can say what the job is about. So that's not the code about the experience, it's about what the job is offering. And for the rest, it's a bit the same. So I'm going a bit fast. The same codes there, which we bring to all the levels again, but now it's a different field. It's the demanded one. And again, we use a taxonomy, but there is a little bit of a difference. In the previous one, if the GV was asking multiple codes, to be happy, we expected all of them to be fulfilled. In the CV case, if the job seeker had provided multiple codes, we consider that the job seeker saying, I would like to have a job as a business analyst or a quality manager or this. So multiple codes for my CV are considered to be or. That one of them, if one of them are offered, is good enough. So it's the same system, only the calculation is slightly different. The CV says, I would like to have a job as a cook or as a waiter. Both of them are okay for me. So GV1 that offers the cook, of course, we have a 100% match, and the other demand is ignored because, as we said, for CV, one happy hit is good enough. In this case, this GV is a perfect match. GV2 comes with bartenders, and that's 3 levels out of 4 for the waiters because these are the same level, so they're not the same. So we have to go up 1 level to have them match, which means that we are 3 out of 4. So in this case, the code is 75%, and the cook is far away, so that will score less. So this GV will score 75% against this CV. Okay, that was it on, sorry. So this was it on the CV side. Also there we can have multiple codes on both sides. It works the same as I showed. The only difference between the big two is In one case, we want all codes to be there. In this case, one is good enough. That for the rest, it works perfectly the same. Again, very important is to have the correct codes coming in and that they are matched. Now we're going into the skills. So we're talking about also, again, the GV. The GV not only says that it wants experience in an occupation, it also wants experience in skills. And there we had to do a bit of a special thing. We are talking about two types of skills. If we are very happy, lucky if we see that some member states are sending in skills, because that's where we want to go for, where we want to do skills-based matching. If we receive in the GV and CV the actual skills, we call them factual, because they're the truth. They've been sent by you, so it's what really the job seeker has put. And in the GV, we have a placeholder where we can put required experience. It can be expressed as ESCO skills. Thomas has shown this in his slide. The same place where you can also put the language skills as ESCO, there you can also put other ESCO skills. And in the CV, we're taking the skills that can be in the qualification section of a CV, also expressed as ESCO skills. So those two we consider in this matching as factual. But as the fill rates are so low, we are also taking derived skills. So what are we doing? We are looking at the ESCO codes. So if there is an experience asked in an ESCO occupation code, we're going to ask the ESCO taxonomy, can you tell me which skills these would want? And we take only the essential ones. And also on the CV, we take the work experience occupation codes and we're bringing them to skills. So skills that you send, we send factual. And extra skills, we are adding it. So when we get the data in, we're validating it, we're putting it, we have got our ESCO taxonomy, and we're calling it and saying, hey, I've got an occupation code for desired experience. Can you tell me the essential skills? Only essential, not all, the essential ones, because there's a difference in the taxonomy. And we're adding them to the expected experience, but then as skills. And we only can do this, of course, when the occupation code that you send is ESCO. For the ESCO levels, if you would go and take all the ESCO occupation and the skills, we would have hundreds and hundreds, so we don't do it. So, but if you are sending an ESCO skill, ESCO occupation, we are also getting their skills. Why is this important? Because suppose that your occupations would not be a perfect match. If we bring them to skills, we are doing net apart from the occupations, we are also matching, checking out maybe the person has the skills without having the occupation. So this is a second way. And by bringing everything to the skills, we are doing a second check, which could correct errors in the occupations. And we can also see we are, of course, filtering out doubles. So we're taking all the derived and we only taking every skill one time. We don't want to count 2 times. So an example, if you have sent as an expected experience that the person needed to be a sommelier, which is this code, if you go on the ESCO website, there is a section essential skills. These skills are going to be added to the expected experience skills as derived. Unless if you would have put assist customers already in the GV as factual, then it's going to be here. And we're not going to add it anymore as a derived one because it's factual. So derived ones are only added if they're not yet there from you. So why is this important? We're going to match, and today we are only comparing the URIs. So ESCO skills are put as codes, URIs, and we're really matching those codes. But as we have factual and derived, we thought about, okay, we should, in certain cases, maybe give more importance to facts than guesses. And so our matching engine can use what we call an affinity table. And so what we have put is that if the code that we're comparing is a derived one, and we're comparing it to a derived one and they match, that's 100. It's 2 guesses, it's 100. The same, if the demand that is derived and what you have put is factual, also 100. The only case when you have asked something factual and the evidence on the other side of the experience is only derived, we said, let's put a 50 because it's less sure than factual to factual should be higher on the list. So the ones that are meeting factual to factual will get a bit higher than the ones factual that are really been hit by derived. And all the rest of the derived demand is being brought to 100. And we've seen before we had 2 of 50 and that was not working. So based on experience, we can adapt these things. And now with this setting, it seems to give the good expected results. So take the example. It's very detailed. I hope you, at least some of you, are still with me, and not everything is now lying dead behind their PC. If the GVs demands, and I took instead of URI something simple, it's asking for skill A and B factual, and we added C and D as a derived. So this is what the experience want by GV. And we got a CV which is offering A factual, but B and C derived. Let's see what the engine does. So in skills, we expect all of them as its experience. The setting is this means for us that all these skills must be there to have a 100% experience. So I'm taking skill A to A factual to factual, that's 100. Skill B is factual against derived, as the affinity table says. Okay, we have a match, but only 50% because it's uncertain. Derived to derived, 100%, and skill D doesn't have anything, so this scores 0. So you see how the engine is going to compare the things, use the table, and put for every demand, it will find a score. So for this GV against the CV, the experience and skills will have a score of 62.5 because it's the average of the 4 scores. This is how the skills-based matching of experience is working today. And there, I can also tell you, but I have a slide on potential changes. We are having some ideas because up to now, we only just could compare skills. But now there is a hierarchy of skills, and we're thinking maybe also of using that in the future. But this is today. And then we are finally at the working language, which was a very difficult one because in the language shop, we are using multiple codes. And because also the fill rates, as the slide of Thomas was shown, was not really great and mixed. What we're doing in this dimension, we are really putting 3 kinds of information, and we're bringing everything to ISO codes because for the matching, the codes need to be the same. So we're bringing for this dimension, we decided to bring everything to ISO codes because the highest fill rates we have now are on ISO codes. And we are putting in the desired working language and the experiences from the CV on one side, and we're bringing this. And what's happening here is that if you send in an experience language in as an ESCO skill, we have made a mapping table of all the ESCO skills that we know that are languages. And most of the time it also says, and I think I have a table, yeah, here is the table. So we've, the colleagues from Ella have provided us with a table saying, if you have this URI, like write Hungarian, you can put that this is, of course, about Hungarian, the ISO code HU. So what we're doing is we're taking the ESCO skills, we're finding them, and if we find them in the mapping table, we are able to say that this CV has experience in Hungarian. So that's what we can do today to bring what is an ESCO expressed also to ISO, as we need to match on ISO there. And it's very straightforward. If one of the codes, one of the ISO codes is found in a GV, we score 100%. So if one of the languages that the CV has expressed as a want is there, we will use this one and have 100%. So also there you see ESCO skills play a role in the language even, because you can send it as a. So after all this very technical information, what is important that you should understand that we are using ESCO in almost half of our dimensions. How important is, and as you see how detailed the calculations are happening, how important is that we have the correct codes, that we have got good knowledge of what the codes mean, and that ESCO is really the backbone of the whole matching model that we have. What we are doing, we're doing a new analysis to improve this match model. As I already have meetings with Thomas on this, and we have quite a lot of improvements. And based on ESCO, we have seen the same presentations from the ESCO team with a lot of new stuff, and we will have meetings with them. Because, for instance, the hierarchy of skills, the linking with sectors, we've seen so much interesting things of extra knowledge that's going to be built in the taxonomy, which of course we would like to use in the matching. If there is a hierarchy of skills, maybe if the skills don't match perfectly, it could be that ESCO can tell us, but if this skill is against that, you could consider this a 50%. That's what we're hoping to find out maybe from. So if ESCO evolves, we hope to use that in the. We are also going to add some new dimensions because the list is not complete yet, and we hope also to use ESCO. And we also want to improve existing dimensions that use ESCO. For instance, the CV, the expressed occupation, we don't have a placeholder in the standards so you can express your desired job as a job seeker in skills. But we can, of course, bring the occupation that the person sends into skills. And then maybe use the skills from ESCO to find jobs with the skills that you like, assume to like. Because you want, for instance, if you say, I want to be a business analyst, and I bring it to skills, and I do a second match, and I see that there are some jobs that have the same skills as a business analyst, but are not called business analysts, maybe we can also offer them to this. So this kind of stuff, we are at this level now, and we will closely work also with the people from ESCO to try and see how we can use ESCO even more and better in the matching. Now I'm going to stop presenting and see if there's anyone alive on the other side with questions.
Thank you very much, Christoph. Really interesting presentation.
You're alive at least. That's good. I see one.
Yes, yes. No, I think everybody is alive. And so now it's, again, your time to ask questions. You can both write in the chat and or raise your hand. I see already some questions arriving in the chat. So we have so on EURES uses v1.0.7 of ESCO. What happens if we send EURES and occupation in an upper version of ESCO?
Very good question. And also we did a kind of a complete check on all ESCO codes, how they've been sent, and we are opening a lot of tickets. So some, if there are IOCs in the audience, they will maybe have received tickets. We're not yet ready, so there will be more to come about all the issues we see. And one indeed is that our standards, we have a fixed list of occupations, and it's indeed the version that you put there, Henri. And that means that if you would send a brand new code, if you're really eager to use the newest codes from ESCO and you send them to us, unfortunately, our system is not so adaptive and will say, no, this is not a code I can accept, and it's going to be removed. So it's really important in the use of ESCO that you keep sending and mapping to the version that the standards support. And also then with the colleagues, we have to see, we should see that the portal is going to follow the versions of ESCO, but it's not that simple. We have to see if it's backwards compatible. But for now, as long as you don't get an official new version approved at the ECG of a new standards version with new ESCO codes, we're sticking to the version that you put there. And there is a clear list. If you don't know what it is, there is a clear list of URIs we support in the standards that Thomas has provided you the link. So indeed, we will remove it. So newer codes will be removed, and it also boils down that if you send a GV with only the new codes, it will appear as there is nothing else. So it's really important. So some of the fill rate reports you will see as well, if you see a 0 or low number, it could be some of you are sending a lot of codes, but they're all sent in a wrong manner and they're all removed. But the good news is that some really small changes are needed in some cases, and then all the codes will go through and your fill rate will rocket. So that's why we're now working on the tickets, sending to you to give you support and tell you what's wrong in the case where it's simple. And some of you already are in contact with me in the tickets to solve. So good news. I can maybe take the next question.
Yes, I will read it out loud just for the recording.
Good.
To be said. So, question about the derived versus the factual skills. With the countries already forwarding skill codes, does their matching rate effectively increase versus where the derived only are used? Do you have measurements of this yet? So this was the first question. So I don't know if you want to answer to it before.
Yeah. Maybe I will take this one. Yeah. So that's also why we put in this affinity table and to favor the factual. So if you have demanding codes, put as factual. And offering codes as factual, they will indeed give higher scores. So if you would send a lot of factual skills and they're being compared to the other ones where we have put them derived, the same skills, your factual ones will score higher. So your data will be higher in the result list because we are more certain that what we're showing in the match results, if you have sent it factual, we can be more certain even if the codes seem to be there derived. So yes, okay, we're not measuring this because the matching is just happening. And so what we do is we do test data and we compare test data to see if what comes out is as expected. And that's how we built this, that we said if we have factual and we have this and one with derived, what would we expect? We see that the factual one comes out of the test higher. Feedback of people saying that certain match results were favorable or not, we don't have. So we're not measuring Lin at a high level. We don't have views over what it comes out, but also depends. Each match is so many different calculations that it's not always going to tell you, okay, the skills there made the difference. It's all the factors in all directions. But for sure, by design, people that send factual skills will get higher in the result list for sure.
All right, so I see a raised hand, but before that, I will read the second question from Belgium. So our NOC is language neutral, so language is not included, so language is also not mapped to ESCO. What will be the effect of this within the EURES matching?
Yeah, also good point and something we have been discussing this week even. So the ESCO language skills are only used in the language dimension, which means that if you would be sending your languages as ISO codes, that's perfectly fine. The matching on language is going to work perfectly fine. It's only that we have to make sure that if someone sends it only as ESCO, we're also taking them in. So if you're not sending any ESCO language skills, but as long as you're sending the language required as ISO codes, you're fine, because that's perfectly okay. So the translation of ESCO language skills into ISO codes is just to make sure that the ones that do send them, that we are taking these languages into the language as an ISO. And even we're going further, that if someone is sending language skills, we plan on filtering them out for the experience, because the placeholder, all the skills are together and we're doing skills-based check as I showed you, but the language skills are going into another dimension. So we need to not consider them to go and look for the rest of the experience. So we're going to filter out. The idea is that these ESCO language skills are really taken into account only for the language check and are not taken into account for the other experience check. And that's one of the improvements that we're going to put or are considering for the next release. I don't know. I hope that answers the question from Lynn. If not, otherwise, please feel free to tell me.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the clarification. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So I see a raised hand from Henry. Let's see, Harry, I didn't know if okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Good, very good. Thank you very much. I have a question for Christophe. When we are making the matching between our classification to ESCO, if we want the matching to be used in EURES, we need to work on version 1.0.7. But I think that the ESCO Secretariat wishes us to work on a newer version. How can we do that?
Yeah.
I mean, you understand our problem.
I understand the problem, yeah.
Okay.
I think Thomas also kind of mentioned it before already, that you've got the exercise on the mapping tables, which is where the ESCO is really supporting you. And there, I think, but I cannot speak for them, but I think, of course, they want you to map to whatever version of ESCO is present and to do the exercise. While on the matching, and that's a bit decoupled, the standards of EURES have to have a more controlled thing, meaning that to accept new codes, we really have to do a lot on the portal and the APIs, whatever. So we're not so flexible on that side. So indeed, on the governance, the mapping exercises, you may be asked to work for newer versions, while in the integration layer, you may still have to maintain a mapping table which downgrades. That's for now reality, I'm afraid, and it's really important for people to understand. So it's good that you ask again. Mapping, the mapping versions and the integration with EURES are really two different implementations. Although they both use ESCO, they might be using different versions. So that's a correct observation, which I cannot solve for you from my point.
Because we in France have a new version of our classification, and it's going to be the hell if we try to make the connections between our versions and yours. I mean, I think I will be working on version for EURES, the 1.0.7.
Maybe you can also contact the ESCO Secretariat on this, because they have got a good full picture. I can only talk from the IT implementation and just say I need the old codes, like a stubborn old Eurosaurus, you know. But the Secretariat has a more overview on this, and I guess they will have other people asking the same question on difficulties, and maybe they even have some tables for you to support. I don't know. So I think there is a Secretariat from ESCO that maybe could help you.
Very good idea.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
Also, yeah. with the new tools and the AI I've seen, I'm really happy to see that these tools are really starting to help people. Maybe, I don't know, there could be stuff for you there.
Absolutely, yes. Merci, Christophe. Thank you.
Nice hearing you, Henri.
See, Jan raised his hand. Maybe you want to answer also this question.
Yes, Henri from the. You can hear me?
Yes.
So from the ESCO Secretariat side, so yeah, no, we do not want you to map to newer versions. I mean, major versions of ESCO. So yeah, I do not know exactly which one you're mapping to, but it should be 1.0 and then like a minor version. So for the like what Christophe also mentioned, so indeed you should map to the major version 1.0, and then yeah, depending on which one minor version you're using, pick that one. So
okay, very clear. Merci.
I see also Francesco's hand raised.
Yes.
So
just to clarify with Christophe, I think that we are on the same page. It can be 107, it can be 108, it can be 109, because at the end of the day, the URIs are the same. There are no new URIs. So if I'm not wrong, but Christophe, please tell me if I'm wrong. Between 07, 08, and 09, there are no new skills, no new occupations. The URIs, the codes are the same. What changes are the translation labels. So, you know, from 09 to 08, maybe some translation in French have been changed, but that doesn't really mean to use much. It's more an ESCO thing. So from that side, the table that I think, Henri, you have mapped to both 09 and 1.1, if I'm not wrong. In this case, you use the table, and I think in the beginning, if it was the case for France, you had mapped to the newest version, and then we reworked to remap it to the old one. So now the table is correct. You can use the table Rome ESCO 109 to send these codes to US. The codes will be read. If you will be sending codes from 1.1, so that the new major version that US is not supporting, then you're gonna get errors. That is I think the situation.
Ah, merci Francesco, c'est très clair. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Merci.
All right, thank you. So I see another question from Tina in the chat. What is the match weight for ESCO skills dimension in comparison to ESCO occupations?
Yep, I just went into documentation to fetch it because I don't know these things by heart. At the moment, they are equally because the matching dimensions you see in the 4 and the 5, the different ones, the scoring is relative, meaning that if you only have a demand for 2 of them, then the scoring is different. So they have a relative weight amongst each other. And in the current setting, the occupation and the skills experience, which are in the both direction, same direction, have the same weight today. But this is one of the things that our colleagues from ELA have indicated that they want to change. They have then also asked input from the ECG. So that's certainly something that's going to be revised in the upcoming release, the different relative weights of the things being used. And if you would have any input or concerns or knowledge on this, then please share this with me or with Thomas, because we will be looking into the different weights, the relative weights, and see if we could optimize, if they need to be optimized. It will also be something that, depending of the data, if we see that fill rates and kind of that data is something you have to watch, and depending on how good the data is, you can put certain weights a bit more in one direction or the other, not to get, I suppose tomorrow only one of you is fully sending skills, and we put a high score on that, yeah, then only their job vacancy or CV is going to be in the top results. So it's a kind of a balance exercise of theoretical thinking and looking at pragmatic what is really in the database, stuff like that. So it's not a simple thing, but it's a good question. And in the future, we'll for sure have a look at the relative weights, even looking at if it's possible that the user could determine a bit what they want as a weight. But that's maybe one dream too soon. But thanks for the question. It's a really good one.
So I think the second question from Tina was also answered already. So can you confirm once again which version is used, the 1.0.7 or 1.0.9?
Yeah, maybe on this as well. So that's why we have in the standards, there's an Excel file which lists all the codes. And in case of doubt, if you don't know, because indeed it's good to have the experts in the meeting that have confirmed that maybe the 2 versions are not changed on the content there, on the URIs, that means that it doesn't matter. But if in case of doubt, take the Excel file, you will find a list which is coded in the system, and that's for sure the correct list. Also, if you would be sending new ones, we will detect it in the quality reports, and we can inform you if whatever code you're sending is too new. We will be able to tell you as well. So we will also be helping you, pointing out which codes. So also only if you would have a mapping at the moment, and there would be some codes slipping, we will tell you which ones are too new and bring you back to the Stone Age. Okay.
I see.
I will say it before you say it.
I have another question for Christophe. How do you deal with jobs that doesn't look the same, that apparently are far away from each other, but are indeed very close? Can you deal with that? The example we give in France is a lorry driver, international lorry driver, would be close to a fisherman, which is not obvious, but it is indeed a job that is near. Can you deal with that?
That's indeed the problem that today you've seen that we are using the place in the ESCO taxonomy of occupation, the hierarchy. If you're close to each other, we consider you similar. But another thing we're looking into now is that on top of that, you could have two occupations which are really far away in the tree, but if you look at their skill sets, maybe they match 75% on the skills.
Yes.
So that's something we're looking into as also one of the proposed changes, that on top of the desired occupation expressed as occupations, to bring them to skills, and then hit them against all the offered skills from the GVs and see if those two clouds may have some hits that based on the occupation code seem far away, but based on skills seem close, have them as well added to the list. So these are the things, and exactly what you say is trying to do. Okay, what do we have as data? What do we have as knowledge in taxonomies? And how could we, what you just described, are they near, what is near, what is far? What should we consider nearer and put them higher in the list? How to express this in logic and into scoring? That's what we're trying to do. And so if you have ideas on this from experience, please also share them, because that's what we need to find ways of what you just said, how we would be able to detect this in a logical way.
We can do something with our NOC team, because they are producing an affinity table for each occupation. So each occupation is connected with other occupation, and the affinity table tells you if it's close or not.
That's also maybe, so I don't know, that's also why I want to learn more about the current state of ESCO as well on this. Is this kind of knowledge, if you have the ESCO taxonomy, where you can put a lot of knowledge, the moment you have it, you could put these links as well. The moment, of course, this knowledge exists, then of course we can use this while we're building the matching model. We can tell the match model, this code is 75% close to that occupation. And then when we do the matching, I don't need to do the levels. I will just go in the table and say, oh, I know this to this 75 score. So that's the beauty of having a taxonomy, that whatever experts can add as extra knowledge inside that model, we can just at match time take a code and ask all the knowledge of that code to the system and do better matching. That's why it's so important that what our colleagues from ESCO is doing is free improvements for us. So this kind of ID, maybe also check with ESCO if they have it or if they can use it. But I think there's much room for improvement there indeed. So that's definitely something to look into. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I see another raised hand from Francesco. I don't know if it was the one from before or if you want to say something else.
No, sorry, it's from before.
Okay. All right. So now I think we can head to our well-deserved coffee break. So thank you again, Christophe, for your presentation. All right, so it's 11:45. I hope everybody's back. And I already see that Peter is already connected, our first speaker for this second part of the workshop. So I will leave you the floor. So Peter Nygård from the Swedish PES. Hello, Peter.
Hello, yes, thank you. Yes, my name is Peter Nygård. I work as an occupational analyst with the labor taxonomy unit at the Swedish PES. I'll start sharing my screen. I've been asked to talk a bit about labor market analysis from ESCO mappings. Yeah, I can't seem to find my presentation now.
In the meantime, I remind you that you can always ask questions at the end of the presentations, writing in the chat or raising your hand. So I don't know, Peter, if you can share your screen.
Yeah, I'll try. It's odd. Let's just try it like this.
Okay, we can see your screen. And
Right.
okay, presentation. Perfect.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, labor market analysis using ESCO, and this is specifically concerning mapping of green and digital ESCO skills. So we have a complete mapping of green and digital ESCO skills in Sweden, and why? So there was this Kickstart React EU project, ESF funding for unemployed losing their jobs due to the pandemic, and a prerequisite for funding was that a third of the funding should contribute to a carbon efficient economy. And how to measure this wasn't very clear. So the idea came about to use the ESCO green and digital skill set to measure or try to statistically monitor this contribution to a carbon efficient economy. And the ambition wants then to, in the long run, try to develop a method for adding a green and or digital dimension to labor market data, including pest services. So that's why. And if we look a bit first at the ESCO mapping, our technical solution, because we're using ESCO as a reference, so we'll talk a bit about ESCO first. So we have ESCO occupations and skills as their own concepts in our taxonomy database. So 2 types of skills, ESCO skill or types, so database types, ESCO skill and ESCO occupation. We have not included the skill hierarchy in our own taxonomy database. This is helpful for a number of reasons, but mainly it's for maintaining mappings. So we try to prioritize mapping the new ESCO versions as soon as they come out, basically. We have this idea that if we have up-to-date mappings to ESCO, our own classification.
I think we cannot hear
Administration software. Yeah.
Sorry, I think we lost you for a few seconds.
Okay. Did you hear me speaking about the maintaining mappings?
I don't think so. It was just like 10 seconds, and then we cannot see your presentation. If you want, I can share it for you, and you just ask me.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just a second, I open it. All right. Share it. Can you see it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So we were here, right?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so the our in-house administration software, it allows us to be very flexible when managing the taxonomy and including then ESCO mappings. So previously we were kind of bound by the PES services when releasing updates, but not now. So it allows us to be kind of ad hoc in our version management, which is very helpful. And it's very efficient for managing the ESCO mappings. If you want a demo, you can contact me. And the source code for this taxonomy editor that we call it it's free. It's in GitLab, so it's free to use. Yeah, next please. Yeah, so some comparison of the Swedish classification and skills classification and an ESCO. So ESCO has a lot of skills comparatively, and including skill descriptions and a hierarchy that is fairly complex, fine level of granularity, and also skills linked to occupations. So this differs quite a bit from our classification. We do not link to occupations, we link to ESCO groups themselves. And and the relevance for linked occupations that is essential or optional. There is no similar relevance specified in the Swedish classification. So the Swedish classification is semantically broad compared to ESCO. So could be nice to keep in mind. If we can show you an example in the next, please. Yeah, so we have a mapping example. We have a Swedish skill called natural gas technology. Again, a very broad term. And so as matches to, and if you see the ESCO skills then on the right, more narrow then. So a lot more ESCO skills, the sheer number of them, but also more defined as a terms of semantic scope. So, next, please. Yeah, so we've mapped the ESCO green and digital skill sets. So the green skills for ESCO uses the Sedefop definition, and the digital skills are uses the decomp framework. I'm not going to read this out loud, but I have some recommended reading. It's a fairly new report. It can be found through the ESCO website as well. And if you want to find more information about how ESCO compile this green and digital skills, it's also on the website. Okay. Next, please. Yeah, and if you want to look yourself, you can just go to the ESCO portal, and for skills filtering, you can use the labels there. You see on the right. Yeah, next, please. So how did we do this, basically? So this was the process. We had already established the mappings for the ESCO skills to the Swedish skills classification. So using the definitions for digital and green skills, we reviewed the mapped skills, basically the mapped Swedish skills that have a mapping to the green and digital ESCO skills. So we wanted to see if the mapped Swedish skills can be considered green or digital, and the answer is yes and no. The green skills were kind of overtly mapped. So there we found a need for new Swedish skills, and the digital was the kind of other way around, that we found Swedish skills that should be digital but did not have a mapping to a green or digital ESCO skill. And I'll show you some examples. So next, please. Yeah, so here we have a green skill, a mapping example. So we have the ESCO skill called types of wood, which is a green skill. It's quite general. So it initially had a lot of matches to Swedish skills. We have like studio carpentry, decorative carpentry, carpentry in film and TV, and furnishing repairs. So we found that the green aspect does not really translate to all of the mapped Swedish skills. Basically only to furnishing repairs. So here we found a need for a new Swedish skill, but we wanted to be able to keep the green dimension. So next, please. So what we did here is to, we made a new skill, or made is not the right answer. We added a new skill called knowledge of materials and craftsmanship. So again, this is rather broad. So this particular wording of the skill was not present in job online vacancies. However, it was offered through the educational programs as a learning outcome. For example, for in certain craftsmanship occupations. So this new skill is kind of semantically broad. We're able to map to several ESCO skills, and it was also relevant for several ESCO groups. So that's why we chose this. So we get to keep the green ESCO skill and the mapping to a Swedish skill, but without making the other map Swedish skills green when they're not supposed to be, as in the previous slide. Okay. So yeah, next please. So what about the rest? Yeah, so there were a lot of Swedish skills that were not mapped to this green and or digital skills, all of the rest basically. So we had to do a reviewing of the Swedish skills, which was a hybrid process. We used both manual and some machine learning tools. So, and the Swedish skills as of now lack a description. So it's a pretty straightforward process. They should be, I mean, the preferred title should be self-explanatory. So we looked at the skills and asked ourselves, should this skill be a green or a digital skill according to the definitions then applied by ESCO? That is the ZFOP definition for green and the green and the DIGCOMP framework for digital. So we're very keen on then using the same definitions and the sort of the same process as ESCO has been using when they produced this skill set. And we found out that we could either do a new mapping or a new Swedish skill, basically, if we found that we wanted to add a green and or digital dimension then to a Swedish skill. So next, please. So this is an example of the digital skills mapping. We have the ESCO skill travel booking processes, which is a match to a Swedish skill called Amadeus, a travel booking system or software. So the Swedish skill is a very specific software. And this in turn, looking at the DIGCOMP framework definition, this should be a digital skill. So use of digital technologies at work, if you look at the framework definition. So we didn't find there was a need for this new Swedish skill. This existing skill or preferred term was relevant in JOVs. So in order to make this a digital skill, we needed a new mapping, basically, to a digital skill. And if we look at the next slide, please. So we basically added a mapping called, we added the mapping of use IT tools to the Swedish skill Amadeus travel booking system. So with that logic, this should also be a digital skill then, since we're using ESCO as the reference tool. So yeah, like again, we didn't find a need to add a new skill in this sense. All right, next please. So in conclusion, just looking at the mapping, got a lot of digital skills mapped, not as many green skills, but quite a few. So, I mean, the good part of this was that it involved a major review of the Swedish skills classification and the mappings to ESCO skills. So making it more current, up to date. We've added several new Swedish skills, but then again, the prerequisite is that if there is a clear demand, for example, job online vacancies, or an offer from the educational system. So we look at the intended learning outcomes in training programs and so forth. Advantages of using ESCO is that it's a reliable, updated source, promoting interoperability and encouraging user input. Perfect. We like ESCO a lot. That's why we use it. And again, I can't stress this enough, but this is the way we try to approach ESCO. This is that if we have up-to-date mappings to an up-to-date classification, our own classification becomes more up-to-date. So as we're reviewing the ESCO mappings, we do a lot of updates to our own national classification. And of course, there are some disadvantages. In this case, there's less control of our own classification. But then again, we do control the mappings. So if we want to make something green, skill a green, we just try to find a mapping to a ESCO green skill. I also noted here that there are longish time between ESCO updates. That's kind of a half-truth. I mean, the updates or version updates do, in general, contain a lot of quality updates. So probably a good thing. Okay, next, please. I'm going to show you a bit how we try to implement this. There are not yet, at least, any established applications of this green and digital mappings. They are available, so through our API and public website, but we tried testing the model with some labor mobility researchers and looked at mapping university course descriptions, trying to find a greenness score. So basically, the take-home message now at this stage is at least that a mapping or using these skills mappings could contribute to a green transition, depending on the circumstances. So this is by design, a very vague guidance in terms of how to use the data. We haven't really tried it live yet, but hopefully we will. I'm going to show you very quickly how we've used this to do some analysis of labor market. So next, please. Yeah, so we look at labor market training programs. So trying to find the prevalence then of green or digital skills in labor market training programs. So the training programs are comprised of modules. So one program can have several modules, and the same module can be present in several programs. So we looked at the learning outcomes of the modules and try to map those to skills in the skills classification, and then noted if these skills are green and or digital. So next, please, I'll show you an example of a module. So this is the module Wooden Frames 1. It's part of the labor market training program Construction Worker. And this is not the whole text, of course, but so we just looked at the description of the module and found the intended learning outcomes and see what skills these could be mapped to, basically. So we have in this case 3 green skills, sorting of construction waste, sustainable materials, and insulation, and 1 digital skill, vocational mathematics. So you could use this method for basically any description of intended learning outcomes, whether it be university courses or labor market training programs, as in this case. And yeah, next, please. There also another application of this is the intergovernment agency project. So we have a group of governments working together, or agencies working together in Sweden. So we have the Employment Service, the National Agency for Higher Vocational Education, and Statistics Sweden. So they've been tasked to define green jobs. Not an easy task, but we're looking at using the ESCO occupations then ranked based on number of essential and optional green skills, and using then the mapped Swedish occupations to look at if you can see from something. We found it quite a promising results. Gian Claudio, if we have time, would we demo the Excel sheet very quickly?
Yes, I will stop sharing this one and go in the Excel sheet. I don't know if you can see it.
It's coming, I think. Yeah, great. So basically, we just did a very basic calculation of the ESCO occupations, depending on number of essential skills and the share of those skills that are green. And we did the same for optional skills, so we could find a score. And this is just the top 12 or so, and this is filtered for total share of green skills. So so we looked at these ESCO occupations ranked in this manner and see what are the, if we have exact matches to Swedish occupations. So that way we could derive kind of a list to work with and see if could these be considered green jobs in the Swedish context. Thank you.
Right. So can I stop sharing?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, that was about it from my. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. So, any question, you can either write in the chat or raise your hand. So I don't see any raised hands. Let's see in the chat. All right. So thank you very much, Peter. And now I would leave the floor to Sasha Sierra from the German PASS. Sasha, I don't know if you're here, if you can hear me.
I'm here, everything clear.
Hello. So I will share your presentation.
Right now. Yes, please. Yeah, many thanks for the invitation. I was invited to share in general our experience with mapping skills from the German classification to the ESCO. Maybe you could go to full screen.
Trying to see where is it from.
And I can very much concur to Peter's contribution, which outlines rather well also the same developments we are facing. and we are within the PES network, within really a good exchange to our national classifications and further developing the national classifications. For us, we have a rather elaborate German classification, which was agreed upon between the statistical bodies within Germany and us as BA, as Public Employment Service. And we underline this rather broad classification with 5 digits. They have with further 3 digits in the end to have concrete, really single tasks, single occupations, single vocational trainings in our classification. And we are when Germany decided, then you could go one slide further. Jean-Claude, yeah, thanks. Yeah. Germany then decided to map the German classification to ESCO in order to fulfill the EURES regulation, which we're talking about today. We map only the active positions if we have a really long-lasting classification system, particularly for occupations. The decision was not to map each and every old occupation we have in the system, but only the ones which are relevant for today's job matching. We do daily changes in occupations and skills, and we whenever we do such a change in occupation and skill, we include this change directly in the mapping tables for ESCO in our database. We currently use the 1.0 version of ESCO, which was mapped rather in the beginning before the skills hierarchy was established. So yeah, maybe you could go on. Next slide, Gianluca. Thanks. Yeah. Before we come to the skills, also a short overview on mapping occupations and the challenges we face there. We have around 3,000 active occupations in ESCO and around 4,500 active positions in our classification center in the database. There is a known database part, particularly for the mapping tables of ESCO. So we have in our database a multi-regional database, the links in between all the different classifications we have. The challenge was very strongly that we have, well, not so much quantitative differences. They are there, but they're not so important. The biggest difference is that we have different granularity in different occupational fields, which there might be good reasons for it. For example, ESCO is really particularly strong for example, fisheries, which is not really important to differentiate that many occupations in fisheries in Germany. Whereas in Germany, we are rather differentiated in occupations, in office occupations, in handcraft occupations, but also digital and future jobs dimensions. And then there's one big problem with German regulation, which is established by the chambers, that we have not only vocational training courses and vocational training jobs, but also further training occupations, which you could only fulfill when you have the particularly further education training. For example, the most striking one may be the master craftsman, but we also have special courses for industrial foremen, technicians, business administrations, and so on. So there we have the problem that within the German classification, it is really important for the matching and for the employers that we only propose people who have these particularly training courses, which ESCO doesn't provide as an opportunity. So this leads all over to that we only have around 1,500 exact matches, around 7,000 more general or more, and 2,000 only close matches. And some occupations which there is no interlink at all possible, which we then map to ESCO 1.8, so that we have some kind of mapping then in a more general classification system. This is the experience with the jobs, the occupations. Now you might go on to the next slide. Yeah, this is just short examples where there are differences, but then we might go on to mapping skills and competences. There we did face the same kind of problems, but it was much worse. It was much harder to find mappings, and it was a very, very labor intense and cost intense undertaking, particularly in the beginning, as there was no skills hierarchy for our contractor to do these kind of mappings. And so we did one time, we did the overall mapping at the beginning, and right now we only do updates on the so-called on the daily basis I was talking. The same kind of problem, particularly for the granularity, is there. So fishery skills, there's the wrong. Okay. Fishery skills are very elaborate in ESCO. In Germany, it's digital, office, and industrial skills, which are rather elaborate, and where there's a lot of differentiation. And then we have something particularly in the German classification, as we are also SBA responsible for the matching of artists. There is a particularly part of the German skills classification, which is only there for what kind of singing you can do, what kind of instrument you could play, and so on, what kind of role you could play, which is not really mapped to ESCO. So we excluded these parts. And then ESCO has soft skills included in its regular skills setting. We in Germany have, in the German taxonomy, we have two separate parts of competencies. We have the professional competences, which are mapped to ESCO, and we have a separate part of transversal skills, psychological occupational requirements, which are currently not mapped and only used within the German systems, but in Germany, not really included in the job matching process. Therefore, we don't use it there. And this was a decision for not mapping it to EURES, but it is used in our recommender systems for occupational orientation. There it plays a rather huge role as part of the psychological occupational requirements, which are then mapped to the individual competences settings on the transversal and soft skills part. We even did some close matches only in order to have any kind of match at all whenever it was justifiable. And we have a high number of unmatched skills, as there is no expression to each other within ESCO or within the German DKZ side, which is, again, particularly some skills in Germany and very important for the German labor market. You could only acquire if you do the particularly vocational further training course, which is special licenses and permissions for handling, for example, dangerous chemicals, for flying different kinds of types of aircrafts, car brands, or skills in regional and international cuisine, which you have to prove then in Germany that you have these kind of skills and competencies, which are not then that don't have any detailed expression within ESCO. So this is our overall setting. We are now in course of doing the same as Peter just presented to you, that we with a scientific background, we develop skills within the German skills hierarchy of Descartes that we could then flag out as green skills, skills that would potentially contribute to the ecological transition of the labor market, and we will highlight them then in spring next year within our own taxonomy and within our Berufenet. So you could then have a look to what kind of percentage each and every job offers ecological skills or green skills. For now, it is not yet planned to do an ESCO mapping. We are, in the end, overall, to take a summary, looking forward to any kind of possibility for AI support in doing these kind of mappings, as it is really hard to find an exact match, to find matches, and it is really labor intense and costly to do these kind of mappings. But on the other side, we need these kind of skills and competency settings within the domestic labor market to do the exact mappings and the matchings for proposing employers and job seekers the right positions to each other. Yeah. So this is an overall view, and just the next slide would again be a particular example where you could see where we have vast differences. For example, in Germany, we don't, in the German skills hierarchy, skills taxonomy, we don't distinguish between writing and understanding English. We only have, okay, language knowledges. And then we differentiate rather between American English, British English, or technical English, or business English. As this is very important in Germany for the further education market, where we have special courses for business English, for example, which you could acquire then this skill by participating in this training courses. And then we have CAD software, which is only one point in ESCO, and we have very different kinds of skills and knowledges in CAD software, like the different programs then we distinguish. So this is the overview we do and our experience with the mapping overall. So I'm now feel free to ask me any kind of questions that might arise. Happy to be here.
All right, thank you very much. So, any question for Sasha? So, check on the participants list if there is any raised hand, or in the chat. Feel free to write in the chat any questions that you may have. I see a raised hand from Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Sasha, for the presentation. Did you mention that did not establish a mapping for like very national certificates or like requirements or specific training required for specific occupations? Would that be like hazardous tasks and so on? Did I understand that correctly? Okay.
Right, we have different kind of licenses for handling, for example, special kind of dangerous goods, and then really special kinds of dangerous goods, and you can only handle them in German labor market if you have the particular certificate to do so. And there was no exact match or any kind of match in ESCO to find for these particular licenses. Or, for example, flying different types of aircrafts, where we have very particularly licenses you need to fly this kind of aircraft in Germany. And there's no expression in ESCO, no match for the map.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no, we were struggling with the same challenge, or basically what to do with these kinds of license and certificates. I think we ended up doing a close map, which is not really correct, not really incorrect either, but mapping it to the more like general technical area that the certificate relates to. But it may be a question for the ESCO team and for the people attending, if it would be beneficial to have an ESCO concept similar to a national certificate in X.
Yeah,
that would.
Well, the problem we face, because one reason we didn't do a mapping there is also we can't have the requirement for people from other countries in Europe to have these kind of certificates. These kind of certificates you can only get within the German system of vocational training. So whenever somebody within Europe wants to be mobile within the European labor market, he would face challenges he can't climb. So we rather leave it being, because there won't be any match from somebody from Sweden or Spain or wherever to have these kind of certificates. They then need to do it when they apply here in Germany, and the employer said, okay, well, we would then give you the courses with us from our employer to do so. And so I don't think there would be for these kind of certificates a big added value in including them in ESCO in euros, because we can't expect anybody else from some different kind of country to have these kind of certificates. So what's the added value? It's more or less only a academic value.
Yeah. A higher
for
percentage
academic research
of completed mappings.
Kind of
Okay, thank you. Nice to hear your reflection on this. Maybe Christoph and Francesco can solve the problem for us.
That would be great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you, Sasha.
And with the perfect AI, that we don't have any work with it anymore. No? The AI just does the mapping, and we only control quality, do quality control, quality check.
All right, thank you. So any other question, comments? I don't see any other raised hand. It's reaching the end of the workshop, so now it's time to ask the final questions if you have. I see a raised hand from Bartolome. Bartolome?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah, you're clear.
Hello, thank you for this presentation. I'm just want to ask you about, because you mentioned that you had so many those more general than and more specific than mappings. So in this area, how do you send information to EURES? I mean, because earlier Thomas, he showed this kind of algorithm to what to do if we have not exact match, and we have those narrow or broad matches. So do you have any experience with this, sending to errors?
Okay, I'm sorry, I was not here this morning, so I'm not quite sure if I get that right then in the end. But as far as I understand, we use these kind of mappings we have, and we send then the broader match. We just use the expression for the broader match then, and include this in our data set we send to EURES. But this would something I would have to elaborate in further how this really works in the tables we send then on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Yeah, but good question.
Thank you. I see another question from Julian from Malta.
Morning. Good afternoon. Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask Sasha, because you mentioned at the beginning that you kind of update the skills every day, I believe you said, or you're constantly updating them. How does that work then in practicality when these are passed down through the PES system and job vacancies need to be, there's new skills being added? Because it obviously makes sense to keep a database of skills, very updated, so that you're always kind of at the forefront of the what is happening in the labor market. But then administratively, is that a bit of a problem, or how does it work?
Well, that's a really good question, and this is the thing I'm in the end most proud of, how we solve that. Because this could be a huge problem, but very early Germany decided to have in the background of our PES systems a multi-regional database, which is constantly updated by an external partner, contractor, which does the research on an everyday basis and just changes the words and so on in the database. And this database feeds the information to all different kinds of our IT systems. So whenever you look to our website Berufenet, it gets the information on from the database. Where our matching systems directly always get the information from the database. So they all take the information directly all the time from the background database we have in the background as a really multi-regional database, which links occupations, skills, further training courses, skills requirements, and transversal skill requirements, or everything to each other, which has an own table for relatable jobs, occupations which are relatable without necessarily being within the same cluster.
Yep.
So we have different kind of clusters in the background we can all use on a daily basis in our systems for the mapping, for the presentation in Berufenet, for our online self-assessment tools. Check your new plan.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So there's a huge consistency, yeah. And also the QuestNet database for all the training courses, for vocational training courses on schools, for further vocational training or further training courses. They're all sharing the same database, and therefore we have the direct link with this kind of occupation. I can have these kind of further training courses, and if I have these training courses, I can then in the end do these other kind of occupations.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you very much. So I don't see any other raised hand or questions in the chat. So last chance to ask your question, or we will head to the end of the workshop. Okay, seeing nothing. So I would like to thank Sasha for your presentation. Thank you very much. And I would call
You're welcome.
Ekaterini for the closing remarks of the workshop. I don't know if Ekaterini, you're here, you can hear me.
Yes, I'm here, Gian Claudio. Thank you so much. And I would like to give a big thank you to all the participants for both days. And also many thanks to our speakers, Christo from the European Commission, Thomas from the European Labour Authority. Today we had also the member states giving presentations. Peter, it was nice to see you again from Sweden. Sasha from Germany. Of course, you, Gian Claudio, for being here both days, and our colleague Jean McGuick from the European Labour Authority as well, who has been working hard behind the scenes. I hope it was a very useful training for all of you, and that from now on we can see improvements on the portal. Please do not forget that you can retrieve back to this training. It will be published both on the ESCO portal and on the EURES YouTube channel, and that was the reason why we are recording it for training purposes. Of course, you can always contact the ESCO Secretariat and the EURES team in case you have any question. But I truly hope that this workshop encourages you to engage into bilateral contacts. Especially, it was very good. We had today with us colleagues from Sweden, Germany. I truly hope that you contact each other and you can learn from exchanging your experiences. And with this, I will give the floor back to Gian Claudio to close the workshop. I was really happy to be with you these 2 days, and both ESCO and EURES teams are at your disposal.
Thank you very much, Ekaterini, and thanks to all the speakers and all the participants who attended this workshop. As also Ekaterini explained, the video, so the recording of this workshop, will be then available on the ESCO portal and on the EURES training provider YouTube channel. And also we will share the presentation that you have seen during these days in the ESCO portal. So thank you very much again, and see you next time. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.